welcome back to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Jessie. I do bullet journal, lifestyle, and bookish content here on YouTube, and today I have my magical readathon / August wrap up. So I finished all but one prompt out of the 13 reading prompts. So without further ado, let's dive in. So for animal studies, I only needed an ordinary, but as I said, I tried to read all 3 prompts. And this was the subject that I only read 2. So the first prompt was animal familiars. Read a book with animal familiars or an animal companion. I originally went with The Novice by Trian Matharu for this, but I just wasn't feeling a middle grade as I already had one on this list. So I decided to go with Queen of Anarchy by Ava Ashwood. This series is so good. She is an absolute amazing author, and I believe this is book 3 or 4 of the series. We follow our main character who is on this mission to get revenge on the people who wronged her and her sister. And we start off the series with her in this club watching this guy who eventually realizes she's there and he runs for it. We later find out that he sold her wrong information. She ends up killing him after a scuffle. Our other 3 main characters, as we get all 4 POVs, come running only to realize that this woman shot this guy, and they pretty much kidnap her to figure out why she's there, if she's been sent by someone, in the end to only realize that they want the same thing. So it was so good. I love every single one of these books. I think I've given every single one 4.5 or 5 stars. This one personally for me was a 4.5. Not quite that there factor, but very close. The next prompt was Raven Familiar. Read a book with a raven on the cover. And for this, I chose A Curse of Shadow and Thorns by L.J. Andrews. Hold that thought. I don't know what book could possibly be so similar. No idea. So let's just take the entire plot of From Blood and Ash, pretty much, other than the maiden aspect. And let's take the very beginning of... Okay, take Kill the Queen, Crown of Shards, book 1 from Jennifer Estep, I think, of the fact the older sister or older cousin, I think it's her sister, and her new husband kill the entire royal family just to take the throne. Put that into From Blood and Ash, and there's your series. I read the first 2 books, and Hawke's entire plot line, other than amnesia, is the exact same plot line of our male main character. Just add the amnesia aspect, there's your main character. Take out the maiden part of Poppy, and there you have our main female character in the series. We even have the best friend aspect, but add that she's part of the group of the dark one. There's another character. Yeah. It was good. And I was like, this seems so similar as I'm reading it. And I'm like, where have I heard, this is so familiar. And then right as I was going to pick up the next book I'm going to talk about, I was like, no freaking way. And then I started to go through the comparisons, and I'm like, no freaking way. It's pretty much a knockoff of From Blood and Ash. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm done ranting. And then the third one is Familiar Hair, Read a Book with a Rabbit on the cover. I didn't get to it, so we're just gonna skip that. Next was Astronomy. If you see me looking down, I have my reading journal right here, which is all the books that I read. So if you see me looking down, that's probably what I'm looking at. I only needed another ordinary for Astronomy, but I actually ended up reading all 3 prompts. And it was Livia, a letter L in the title. And I went with The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. I love Rick Riordan's writing. It's phenomenal. He does such a great job of putting you in this world that, no, these young kids in real life would never go through, but that's the whole point of being in a fantastical world, magical and whimsical air about these novels. I thoroughly enjoy these. We follow Jason. He doesn't remember who he is. He wakes up on this bus not knowing, like I said, who he is, how he got there, where they're going, and when they get to the destination of their field trip, they end up getting attacked by these wind spirits, and who other than Miss Annabeth shows up and rescues them and takes them back to Camp Half-Blood, and the story really takes off from there. Annabeth is looking for her boyfriend, some guy named Percy Jackson. Chiron seems to know something, but he's not saying anything. The story is fantastic. Absolutely loved it. I can't wait to read Son of Neptune, which is book 2. The second prompt for Astronomy was Ravensbourne. Read a book with archers or rangers. For this, I read the second book to that knockoff, A Court of Ice and Ash. I already went over that. I'm not going to go over it again. The third prompt was Miel, multiple people on the cover. I read Twisted Game by Ava Ashwood. Ava Ashwood has fastly become one of my favorite Kindle Unlimited authors. She does such an amazing job of everything. Absolutely everything. Character development, world, plot building. She's just good at it all. Twisted Game follows our main character who she has no one left except her addictive mother who doesn't help her whatsoever, and her student loans are coming up and starting to pile up as well. And she works at a strip club as a bartender or server. She goes to her boss and he says, no, you're not dancing in my club, but if you want to sell your virginity, I can set that up and you will make more than enough than you need. Desperate and out of options, she agrees. But when it's supposed to happen, these 3 big guys burst through the door, kill the man. She's left without the money, and they tell her to run instead of killing her, so the story really takes off from there. It was so good. The way that these guys treat her is good and weird at the same time. All 3 of them have been through so much that make them who they are, that all 4 of them together is a smorgasbord of emotions, and they don't really know how to interact in the beginning. They kind of stalk her to make sure she's not going to go to the police. And she's curious about these guys. Yeah, that's all I'm really going to say. Okay, the third subject was Elemental Studies, and I needed a distinguished. So for ordinary was Element of Water, Start a Book with a Drink. I did that for The Lost Hero. The second is Wind Redirection. Point out a random book and choose one adjacent. I actually pointed to Dominated by Maya Banks, so this is the second in the Enforcer series, so I just went with the first, Mastered. I read both of these for the readathon, so I'll just talk about them now. I read Dominated for Restoration, and that was for Ordinary. Mastered and Dominated follow the same couple in the Enforcer series. I love this trilogy. It is so good. We follow our female main character, and she has had to grow up very, very fast. Her father was sick and her mother took care of her father, and so she kind of had to take care of herself. Fast forward, now she's living in, I want to say, New York. She works as a waitress. One night she gets home from her shift and her friends are trying to convince her to go out to this prestigious club because one of her roommates and best friends has a VIP pass. She kind of wants to deny it, but in the end they convince her to go. They get her all dolled up, the whole 9 yards, and the bouncer tries to turn her away in the beginning, but she flashes the VIP pass and he begrudgingly lets her in. When she gets inside, she feels very uncomfortable, like she's being stared at. The people are thinking she doesn't belong there. So she goes up to the bar to order a drink and she ends up seeing her ex. He comes up to her, tries to humiliate her, and goes to grab her, and all hell breaks loose, and the next thing she knows, she's in the club owner's office. Our male main character, on the other hand, he has known hardship and he built his empire from the ground up. His security team are like his family. He is standing by his big windowed office that looks out onto the floor of his club, and he sees this woman who he knows should not be in his club. He's upset. He is like, the bouncer should know better. She looks innocent and naive. Some man goes to grab her and he's like, nah. He instructs everybody to get his ass out of the club and to have her sent up to his office. And it takes off from there. It is so good. I love this series. I love how fiercely our main character starts to stand up for all these big buff guys that are our male characters' protection and security team. It's just so cute. I love our female main character. She's very naive, very innocent, yes. She doesn't know her own beauty, but she is fiercely protective. She's just a really good person all around. She would do anything for anyone. So the fact that our male main character wants to do things for her it's a feeling she doesn't know how to take yet. Our third prompt for elemental studies is wave manipulation, a sea setting. For this, I chose Mafia Toy by Amelia Rose. This is an ongoing story, but I am completely caught up, and 2 or 3 chapters did take place on a yacht, so that's where I'm going with that. Our 3 POVs is Sage, Constantino, and Lila. Constantino and Lila are married, and Sage kind of perks Lila's interest. She wants Sage to join into their marriage as a threesome. They will kind of own her. She's steamy. We also have Lila, who is a very annoying character up until this point. I really don't like her. Constantino, he's just so by himself. He loves his wife so much, but he doesn't agree with a lot of the thoughts that she has about herself and about her close friends. We have Bethany, who is supposed to be her best friend, but all she does is tear her down and make her second guess her body and her marriage and what she should be wearing, eating, going, who she should surround herself with. It's really tiresome and she's so annoying. And Sage is so sweet. She just wants the best for them. She knows that this is a contract, so she doesn't want to fall in love with both of them. It's so good. I highly suggest you check Amelia out. I am part of her Patreon, so that's how I'm able to read this novel. This is not sponsored. I just very much enjoy her series. So she has a lot of other books. She has My Werewolf Professor, Poison, The Boy Next Door, The Twins, Alpha Maddox, Come Here Kitten, I think is the first one. She has a bunch of amazing stories out, so go check her out. She is also a self-published author, and she's just really amazing, so shout out to her. Now on to restoration. I needed a qualified, so I read Dominated by Maya Banks. For object restoration, a single object as the focus on the cover. It's a chain. There's nothing really crazy about it. Next was Enriched Scroll Mending, one of the oldest books on your TBR. I was originally going to go with Hatchet. I had originally bought this book for my husband. If you're Canadian, you would have known, if you're, I guess, around my age. Hatchet is very popular within the school system, or it was when I was younger. It had a very different cover back then, so I will insert the cover of how it used to look. But this is the newer version. This is a story about Brian who, on a plane going somewhere, it ends up crashing and he has to survive the Canadian wilderness. I was like, I don't really remember the story. I've had it on my TBR forever to reread. Not that I owned it physically, I just knew that I really wanted to reread this story. But as I was reading it, I remembered it. So I decided to go with a different work, which is Brian's Winter. There are 2 other novellas, but this one follows Brian if he wasn't rescued and he had to live out the Canadian winter in the middle of nowhere after he crashed. So if he wasn't rescued, this would have been his story throughout the winter time. It was so good. I recommend it. Like I said, there are 3 other novels or novellas of Brian. There's 4, sorry. There's Brian, The River, Brian's Return, and Brian's Hunt. And it was really good. I enjoyed it. Prompt was urgent battle care. Read a book in 1 or 2 sittings. I read Mastered in 2 sittings by Maya Banks. Last but not least, we have Shapeshifting, and I only needed an ordinary, which was Formation, Wings. Read a book with wings on the cover. I read Empower, book 5 in the Violet Eden series by Jessica Shiverington. I reread this every single year as it is one of my favorite series of all time. Like many other novels published around this time, Shatter Me, City of Bones, Daughter of Smoke and Bones. It's very in the times. We have our main character who is in high school. She's living her best life. She finds out that she's not solely human. She now needs to navigate this entire world. People she knows had lied to her about her mother and knowing her and knowing where she comes from, and she kind of has to deal with that along with this newfound world that she's been thrust into. It's really good. Second last is Instant Momentary Mimicry. Book released this year. I went with Broken Air by Zoe Shelby and Helen Scott. This series was pretty good. Not the best, but not the worst I've read. We follow our female main character who is starting college, but she's there for a very specific reason. She's had a lot of loss in her life. Her mother died, her sister also died in a car crash, and her twin sister committed suicide. But upon further investigation by herself, she knows that her older sister didn't just die, she was murdered, and she's going to this college to befriend her sister's 3 best friends to find out if they had anything to do with her murder. But she also has very strong ties pulling her back home, as her dad is part of some underground business in their area and she is his kind of enforcer, but also his pawn to use as he wants. The story is very dark but also very intriguing. All of our characters go through this wonderful character development journey on their, like, every single one of them except one, and I can't say who it is, but they really disappointed me and really annoyed me throughout pretty much the entire series. And if you know, you know. If you don't, read it and then you'll know. And last but not least was A Crane Anatomy, the word anatomy in the title. And I just went on Kindle Unlimited. Again, this video is not sponsored by Kindle Unlimited. I just thoroughly love to read a lot of novels because you can read them for free. I went on there and I typed in anatomy and a bunch of them came up. I chose the first new adult romance I could find, or one that looked good, and it was Intro to Anatomy Love 101 by L. Nicole. This was such a short and sweet novel. We have our female main character and she is really upset that she has to supervise this random guy, criminal, in a shop class. She is an anatomy teacher. She has no idea what the heck small engines is or anything having to do with mechanics. And then we have our male main character who it's either teach mechanics at night school or go to prison. Obviously, he chooses night school. When he gets there, he sees this beautiful, curvy, redheaded woman who is his supervisor. They kind of start their romance. It was really good. I enjoyed it. It was quick. It was sweet. Just what I needed. Ended perfectly. It was enjoyable. So that was all the books that I read for the Magical Readathon Autumn Equinox 2022 Orillium Academy. It was so good. I had so much fun. It was definitely a light throughout my very crazy roller coaster of emotions August, and I thoroughly enjoyed almost every single book that I read. So thank you guys for watching. If you watched to the very end, leave maybe a frog emoji. Leave a frog emoji if you made it to the very end, because it was a lot for you to listen to me babble on about books. Thank you so much, guys. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our slowly growing family here on YouTube, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.